What is conscription? Conscription, or drafting, is a compulsory enlistment of people in the national service. Conscription dates back to antiquity and still continues to present day in some countries. What are the pros of conscription? The first one is that it promotes national unity. Mandatory military service, or conscription, can promote national unity in many ways. It allows citizens to learn, train, and fight together, creating a shared experience of what they've all been through. Another one is that it maintains an active military force, whether that's abroad or in their country. This can be useful for things like national security, say there's a terror attack or something. That's what reserves and stuff can be used for. That's what, Another one is that it ensures high levels of governmental participation. This basically means that if citizens are required to join the military, obviously when it's required, the public will be more aware of the government's decisions during that time. Obviously with their lives, with them being forced to go in the military, it puts their lives at risk. Therefore, the public will want to understand more about the threats that are threatening their country, and if it's worth fighting for. Also, it can provide useful life skills for conscripts that join. Life in the military can provide citizens with good teamwork skills, responsibility, initiative, stress management, and global awareness. These are all good things to have in your life, to be honest. Another one is it promotes equality among citizens. Conscription means that no one will be exempted from facing wars. All citizens, including celebrities, rich people, or just ordinary people, regardless of race, religion, or anything like that, will be required to serve for their nation if it's in need of soldiers.
Cons of conscription. One of the cons of conscription is that it violates free will. One of the arguments raised against mandatory military service is that it violates people's rights to exercise free will. No one has the final say whether they should participate or not in military training and enter the army, since it is a compulsory mandate implemented throughout the country. Another con of conscription is that it puts young people's lives at risk. Though you may not like to think about it, part of the process is risking young people's lives. Casualties don't just happen in actual combat or in the battlefield, but can also happen during training. Mandate military service, which normally enlists able-bodied young people, puts the next generation at serious harm and, at worst, death. Another con of conscription is that not everybody is fit for the job. Mandatory military service, or conscription, requires every citizen to join and serve in the armed forces, but not everyone is cut out for it. Whether it is mental health issues, physical issues, or psychological issues, not everyone is fit to meet the physical, mental, and emotions demanded for the job. Potentially killing someone is something that every person who was drafted in the military struggles with on their own. A study conducted by Anxiety and Depression Association of America showed that approximately 40,000 military members who returned from war in Iraq and Afghanistan suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and the rate is 3 times higher among those who are deployed in combat and those who are non-deployed.
Here are some examples of conscription. The first one is of America in the First World War. The US had an initial age bracket of 21 to 30, but the selective service system expanded that in 1918 to a range of 18 years old to 45 years old to keep with demand for men during that war. Another case is of Britain in the Second World War. Conscription was often known as the call-up during that time in Britain, and the initial age bracket was 20 to 40. That was soon expanded to 20 to 51, but there was people as young as 16 years old to as old as 60 years old fighting for Britain during them wars. Here are some examples of countries that still have conscription. The first one is Albania, then Angola, Azerbaijan, Bolivia, Brazil, Egypt, Chile, Colombia, and surprisingly, Denmark, Finland, and Austria which is quite odd.
Conscription in Australia, 1960s. In 1964, the National Service Scheme, also known as conscription, was introduced by the Menzies government. Under the National Service Scheme, 20-year-old men were required to register with the Department of Labour and National Service. They were then subjected to a ballot which, if their birth date was drawn, meant the possibility of 2 years of continuous full-time service in the regular army, followed by 3 years part-time service in the Army Reserve. As part of their duty, national servicemen on full-time duty were liable for special overseas service, including combat duties in Vietnam. As the number of men eligible for call-up far exceeded the number needed for military service, the biannual ballot determined who would be considered for national service. The ballot resembles a lottery draw, even to the extent, in the case of the final 5 ballots, of being fully televised. Numbered marbles representing birthdays were chosen randomly from a barrel, and within a month, men whose numbers had been drawn were advised whether they were required to participate in the scheme or not. Those failing to register without an acceptable explanation were automatically considered for call-up as well as being liable to a fine. Here is televised evidence of the lottery for conscription in Australia.
Norelco, even our name says Merry Christmas.
The Draft Lottery, a live report on tonight's picking of the birthdays for the draft.
Pursuant to the executive order, the Director Selective Service is going to establish tonight a random selection sequence for induction for 1970. I will ask Congressman Purney to come forward. Congressman Purney is representing the United States, the Military Affairs Committee of the House, and he also is a senior Republican president who has been the watchdog committee of this selective service system. And we're going to ask him to choose the first.
September 14th.
September 14, 001.
There are 366 numbers to select, one for each birthday in the year, plus
October
one for
27th.
February 29th, the leap year. The ceremonies began at 8 o'clock. This evening, this has been a very systematic, almost mechanical lottery, the first really nationally televised lottery we've ever had. There's been
Public's opinion of conscription in Australia. The public's opinion for conscription was changing all throughout the 1960s, with both political support and opposition and the general public of Australia showing their sides of their opinion. In the early years of Australia's involvement in Vietnam, opposition was limited. However, the National Service Scheme did attract opponents as soon as it was introduced, but it was only eradicated when the government increased the size of Australia's commitment to the war in Vietnam. National Service's early opponents included the parliamentary opposition, religious groups, trade unionists, academics, and the general public affected by the scheme. Anti-conscription movement groups began to form and organise, some becoming prominent and forming branches across Australia. Among them, Youth Campaign Against Conscription formed in late 1964 and closely aligned to the Australian Labor Party. The Save Our Sons was also founded in Sydney in 1965, shortly after the government announced an increase of troops to Vietnam the next year. To this day, there is still dispute whether or not conscription should have been used in the 1960s, and was it right to dictate the lives of Australians? Did we need to do it? What would have been the outcome if we didn't? We will never know.